Conventional deadlift just means a squat pattern. That's all it really means. So if you say barbell deadlift to most people, they're almost always thinking a hinge pattern for some reason. I don't know why. So we started labeling it conventional deadlift. Conventional is just straight down in the squat pattern. Okay, so what I want to coach on, normally I have this higher for myself. I normally never coach it from the ground, but I always have to coach it from the ground for most people. Same thing goes as this is this. If you have somebody that can't get all the way down, lift it up somehow. It'd be boxes, whether it be Balor boxes, whether it be J-hooks, whatever you want to use, just lift it up a little bit off the ground. It's going to be a lot easier to teach. Number one. Number two, we're going to always make sure we're really close. Our toes should be touching, but really our ankles should be almost against it, right? So we want to be really close to that barbell, whatever that barbell is. All right, from here, I'm going to start in as low as I can to the ground while my arms can stay straight. What I don't want to teach is having slack in my arms. I want to teach from the arms straight. The reason why I want to do that is because I want to be able to pull my shoulder blades back. I won't be able to pull my shoulder blades back if my arms are bent, right? So a lot of people you see jerking the bar around, they're starting with too much slack. I want to take all that slack away, right? So what I like to do is I like to pick up the barbell however I can from the ground, and then from here I'm going to start with my shoulders tight. Think about, hey, I want to break that bar in half, whatever you need to teach. Remember, I want to emphasize, break that bar in half, pull your shoulders back, whatever cue you want to use, but always look at their lower back. If the lower back's starting to arch a lot, then we have a problem, right? Because we need to focus on the core a lot more. So if you see this, but you see their core loose, then I start emphasizing, all right, I want you to pull your rib cage down, right? So at this point, my spine's a little bit more neutral, correct? Okay, so from here, I'm going to go down in a squat pattern. So I'm going to slide it down my legs still, a little bit close, all the way down till my arms are straight, and then back up. Staying close to the bar, right? You're not gonna let them go that far away from it. The further you are from the bar, the more you're gonna feel in your lower back, correct? Let me think. When I start at the bottom, so if I start coaching it from the bottom, I'm gonna start here. My shoulders, my elbows, a lot of times, we call this the eye of the elbow. I wanna try and see, if they're using their lats, the eye of the elbow should be pointing in front of them, right? Because I'm using my lats, I'm here. My lats are really tight. So I'm always kind of looking at that as a coach. I'm looking at the eye of the elbow and see where they're pointing. If they're squeezing the lats, and as long as they're pointing not like in, you're good, because that's internal rotation of the shoulder. You don't want to pull with internal rotation, you want to pull with external rotation. Always think about it. If you're thinking about more scientific terms, I want to externally rotate my shoulders when I'm bringing my shoulders back. That's all it is, it's externally rotating your shoulders, right? So another way to coach it would be, hey, I want you to open your shoulders by pulling your thumbs out to the sides. That's another way. If you can't get somebody to understand what shoulders back means, hey, I want you to rotate your hands out. What's an anatomical position? You see all those Leonardo draw everything like this. That's external rotation on your shoulders, right? So I want you to externally, go ahead and try just to go like this and tell me if you feel in your shoulder blades. Feel the shoulder blades? Exactly, right? Feel the shoulder blades? Good. So that, and then I tell them, hey, that feeling, I want you to feel that feeling when you're holding the bar, right? So if I'm on the bottom, I want you to have that feeling holding the bar. Externally rotate my shoulders. I'm almost trying to get my thumbs to go out, but I can't because my hands are holding the bar, right? So that's another way of thinking about it. This is diving deeper into that feeling, right? So yeah, from the bottom, I'm gonna have the bar right next to my shins. I'm gonna take all the slack out. I'm gonna pull my shoulders back, externally rotate my shoulders, whatever you wanna call it. I'm sitting back into the bar and I'm pulling up. I'm gonna try to sit back, especially as the weight gets heavier and heavier. You wanna sit back into it, right? It's definitely the hardest deadlift to do. We normally don't coach it that much. We gave up on it. We were trying to fit every body into that, and we're like, no, there's no way, there's no chance. People just are not meant to do this type of barbell deadlift. This guy and most anybody can do. So we gave up this guy for that guy. So we just don't even teach it somehow. We probably have like 8 people on this, ever. We have almost everybody on this one, even including like 80-year-olds, whatever it is. We just love the trap bar deadlift compared to this guy. It's just easier to teach that external rotation. You don't have to think about it, right? Let's see. Questions on that straight bar? No? A lot of times you'll see a hinge pattern later on the reps. It's okay. It's okay. Like, it's not a bad thing, but you need to make them understand that they're doing it. Just make them understand they're doing it. It's not a bad thing. If they're not feeling their back, there's nothing wrong. It's just a different lift. And when their body starts getting tired, a lot of times I'll have people do singles instead of multiple reps at the same time. Hey, do one, put it down, stand up. Do one, put it down, stand up. That way you're resetting your body every time, setting back into the bar as you're going up. Because if you start doing multiple reps, I start going down and I start slowly getting more into a hinge position, right? Instead of, okay, let's go back down, sit up, sit back, back up, back down, sit up, back down. I'm gonna sit back, so I'm sitting back every time I'm loading it up, right? So I'll just have people do 2, 3. If I set a 10 and they can't keep that form together, hey, let's do 3 at a time. Take a back break, go back into it, reset yourself. Same thing in the bench press. Honestly, if I have a set of 10 and their shoulders start running, rack it, stretch your shoulders out, unrack it, reset your shoulders and come back. That's one way of doing it. The second way of doing it in the bench press is unracking it, do a couple, reset your shoulders while your bar is on you, keep going. Reset your shoulders again, keep going. I myself have to do it every like 3 or 4 whenever I'm chest pressing. I don't do it a lot, but I have to make sure I do it because I'm not perfect and I always sit shoulders forward because of swimming and water polo. for me, right? Yeah, so just looking at your lower back on that, making sure it's not super curved. Not everybody's gonna have a straight lower back, and that's okay, but just wanna make sure you're not hurting people, right? If you can't get that low, that's okay. We don't have to get that low, but you have to make sure they can put it away somewhere. So you have the J-hooks out there for them so they can unrack, step back, do their set according to their depth, and then come back, re-rack. That's it. We don't have to do it any lower than that, right? Variant foot position trap bar. So another one that we like to do. Oh, questions on that one? Everybody feel good about that one? If I ask you to demonstrate, you think you could? What's up? Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. You can always do that, girl. Absolutely. That's gonna be a cheat code for you for a long time. Okay, so trap bar, variant foot position. So another one we like to do is we like to do a stagger. Staggers, trap bar deadlift. So we're gonna get down the ground. We're gonna, same thing I just told you, we're gonna keep a slack away, but not bending our elbows. Gonna keep the elbows locked out. You're gonna come up and back down. You're only gonna get as low as you feel comfortable, keeping your hips low. So if I start doing this and then here, that's probably too low. I wanna stop where I see my shoulders going forward, right? On a staggered deadlift and any kind of lunge, especially a baby lunge, which is gonna be this, I'll teach you guys later. You wanna make sure that you're coaching the hips coming down. Hips are coming down. You're not just coaching bending your knees, coach the hips coming down, because a lot of people will bend their knees a little bit and then go forward. And then I will coach, hey, try to see if you can get your heel to touch your butt. Right, try to see if you can get your heel to touch your butt. Where you grab the trap bar is gonna make a big difference. We always wanna make sure to grab it in the middle. Going forward, the trap bar is gonna be like this. Going backwards, the trap bar is gonna be like this. So it's gonna be really uncomfortable on the hands. If you'll see it, you'll see the way they're holding it. So if you have to, have them set it down, reset the grip, and then come back up. Higher trap bar, it's a lot easier than the lower trap bar. Just make sure you know that there's 2 heights to it. Sometimes we'll say on the sheet, high trap bar or low trap bar, depending on the person. Sometimes they won't say anything. So it's up to you to assume what you want to try. And if you do high bar, like that looks a little easy. Let's try the low bar in the next set. You can definitely do that. That's okay, right? But if you do and there wasn't anything written, maybe you should just start posting it so everybody can follow through. We're now trying to discover it, right? Sometimes I'll forget to write it down in my programming. Another one that we could do is just narrow, right? We can do feet together. Same thing, just on feet together, you won't be able to go as low, right? So I might be able to go this way, but most people just go like 45 degrees almost, right? Let's see, yeah, so there's different variant foot positions for that. Tempo, we're going down slow, coming up normal speed, or we're going down normal speed, coming up slow, or we're going down, holding it right before it hits the floor, right? So I can do a normal trap bar deadlift, go down, hold it, 1, 2, 3, 4, and come back up. Different tempos, right? The idea of tempos, it just gets you more prepared for your back, all the big muscles to be used to that load for a period of time. So it definitely gets you used to it. Like for example, when I'm trying to lift heavy, I work a lot on, at the bottom, holding it for a while. So like I'll put some weight on the bar, I'll go down, hold 1, 2, 3, 4, but I want my back to be healthy, so I want to make sure my back overloads itself, but up to a point where it doesn't break, right? Same thing with people. Okay, then we got deficit kettlebell RDL. So what we just talked about before, so if I can have 2 Valor boxes, right? And this is kettlebell RDL would be one kettlebell, right? So I'm gonna just simulate the deficit. Perfect, thank you. All right, let's push this a little bit more. So what we're gonna do is, we're gonna keep this kettlebell here. So it's an RDL, so I'm gonna get hinged. I'm I'm gonna pick up my kettlebell, and all I'm doing is going for death, right? But I don't wanna lose my lats. So I'm still not touching the floor. I just wanna go as slow as I can without losing my lats. I'm still pushing my butt back. I'm just allowing it. That's the RDL version. Remember that we talked about the other version was gonna be this one, right? So that's the only difference. It's a squat pattern to a hinge pattern. The hinge pattern is a lot later in the sheet, because it's a lot harder to teach going lower in a hinge with your shoulders back than it is to go lower in a squat pattern with your shoulders back, right? This is really good for like a yogi. Someone has really loose hamstrings. Anybody has loose hamstrings, yoga, gymnastics, anything like that, they're gonna be like, oh, I don't even feel anything when I do this. I'm like, oh man, you're gonna be one of those people who's gonna make me get a lot of equipment, right? Let's see. Or sometimes even longer hamstrings, like we talked about, longer limbs. They might have a longer femur. They can get lower, right? But their arms are shorter, so we might be able to get more out of that, right? All right, then we got a single leg RDL loaded. So at this point, we start with the counter first. So I'm gonna start with, let's say I can grab this dumbbell. So single leg RDL loaded. You can also start teaching this one assisted. You can still teach it assisted, but it's counter loaded, right? So if I have my left foot down, I'm gonna be right. So I guess, let me just make sure I show you this. When I was unloaded, but assisted, I was opposite. Because this arm is holding here. But now since I need a load, it's gonna be the opposite, right? This arm's still holding, but I'm switching my leg that's RDLing. You see what I'm saying? It just depends on if you're loaded or not. So in this case, I'm gonna start assisted. I'm gonna go down, I'm gonna counter loaded because it's gonna be a lot easier for me to balance like this than it is like this. Same side, same leg down, it's gonna be a lot harder than opposite side, opposite leg down, okay? That's our first step from here. I will always start them on the wall if they've never done it before, or on the rack, right? We're still looking for that back leg to be straight. We're still looking for, the biggest thing we see when we start loading people is honestly the lack of lat, right? So I always start everybody always starts nice and tall and they pull their shoulder back, and as soon as they start letting their chest go forward, bam, they lose it. Right? It just like goes away. I'm like, no, you need to keep that lat tight at the bottom too, because at the bottom is gonna be the hardest way to keep it down, right? I'm not gonna be able to touch the floor if I keep my lat tight, I'll tell you that. And most people think they wanna touch the floor. It's not about touching the floor, it's about keeping this tight. So emphasize having those shoulders back at the bottom especially, really at the bottom. So first we start with one arm, and then we got two dumbbells, and we start with double arm, right? So as long as they can do one arm good, then we'll start grabbing two arms. And we'll keep doing the same thing, double arm. But the same thing goes, shoulders back. That's the hardest thing to keep on somebody is shoulders back. Feel good about that? Yeah? Okay. Then we go into our tempo deadlift with the barbell. So we have our squat pattern, and we just go 1, 2, 3, 4, and going back down slow, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? With our barbell. So it's our squat pattern barbell deadlift, right? So it could be going up slow, it could be holding it at the bottom, it could be going down slow. We have different grips. We have snatch grip, wide grip, and you could have a small grip. So you could have a snatch grip would be here, right, nice and wide, and it's a lot harder to keep your chest up, right? It's just a different variation. We don't really do this one a lot, I'll tell you that. We have a wider grip, so you can go right outside the circles. It's not a snatch grip, but it is a wide grip. And you can even have a small grip. It's just different ways of looking at it, right? You're training different grips at that point. This is definitely somebody that's way more proficient at that lift itself.
When it says switch grip, is that like over and under?
Yeah, so that's a good question. That's a way good question. Not necessarily, no. So I don't really teach switch grip because if I teach switch grip, I've seen a lot of people pull their bicep on a switch grip. That doesn't mean we're gonna get up to that weight though, right? So yeah. So that's another, for sure, that's another way to teach it, but I forgot to even mention it on the straight bar conventional. You can definitely teach straight bar conventional deadlift switch grip like this if they don't have a grip strength. If they don't have the grip strength. A lot of times it's really hard to teach this. And also the other thing I see on a conventional barbell deadlift, this is gonna help you keep your shoulders up a lot more than this one. But what I try to do is I try to make it the harder variation first. If I can teach them this grip and they get it, this is gonna be a piece of cake later on. If I have to teach them this, they're gonna get used to it. They're never gonna wanna go here,
That's
right?
how I was. I always did this, and now I'm like,
Me too, me too. I had to switch, yeah. I used to do this for like 10 years and I had to switch this and I'm like, oh shit, it's harder. But it took me like a year to get out of how hard it is to go back to my normal weight. I still got it. I do hook grip all the time, but both arms straight, right? But now I have unevenness, right? Before one bicep was way stronger than the other because I would pull a lot more with one than the other, right? So I like to teach it this way and then going from there. And they're not pulling a lot of weight. Like we're gonna pull, but we're not gonna like Superman pull, right? So that's a very good question. Another one you can do is underhand grip on both of them. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just different grip, different way of handling the weight, right? Same thing with the foot position. We can go wide sumo deadlifts, right? I'm sure you guys seen that. For this one, I do teach this. Depending on the person, I might teach this first, more than this, for sure. This is just easier to get that chest out, and that's the hardest part of the sumo is keeping the chest up and forward. Right? Because otherwise, if I teach this, the first thing I see most of the time is this, right? I start running my back. I'd rather get rid of that. If it's just a grip, it probably won't go that much heavier. And I'll have them switch grips also in the middle of the list. Like say it's 12 reps, hey, do 6 and do 6. That way they get more used to it, right? Or do 12, next set come back and do 12 the other way, right? Variant position, okay, so we have narrow. We also have narrow, so the same thing we talked about. Here, we can go medium, we can go wide. We can go sumo, so there's a difference between wide grip, which is this way, and then there's sumo, which is in between, right? Wide grip is still, arms will be still out to the sides. Sumo, arms will be inside. Arms will be inside. That's the big difference between that. Deficit conventional deadlift. So you start playing around, you start finding out people have a lot more mobility than you can know. So you can start doing this guy, right? So now you're below their feet height. You start going up and you still a squat pattern. Or you can do the same thing with an RDL, right? You're going below, try below the weight and then back up, right? Like I said, these are all, that last line is, you won't see that much. That's pretty athletic. I love seeing it and playing around with it when people get to it, but once again, you're coaching a lot more, making sure the lower back's not hurting. A lot of people are here for injury prevention. So if we do get to that point, we're trying to make sure that they're just not hurting, they're looking good in that lift, right? And then we have deficit RDL. Yeah, that's just the one I said. You can do it on a barbell or you can do it on a dumbbell. Right? You can also have 2 dumbbells here and be standing nice and tall and back down. I can't even go that far down without losing my lats. Right? I lose my lats right away. You only want to do it if you can keep your lats real tight all the way down. Right? Questions on the deadlifts? No? Everybody feel pretty good in that?
Do you ever do 1 rep?
Maxes?
Yeah.
With myself? Not with most people.
Like if a client wanted that.
We have done it before, but I like doing 2 to 3 rep maxes, more than 1 rep maxes. There's just no point in putting something in that much risk. For myself, if I risk it, yeah, but that's myself, right? Nobody's coaching me. If you're putting the risk on, if you're my client and you're putting the risk on me, I'll tell you go 2 to 3 max, right? But we never really get that heavy, not enough.